Anyway, it is Wednesday, September 12th, 2024. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in the sheep row. I saw some things that looked like acorns in the water. I'm like, that's a lot of acorns. And then I realized there's little pellets, there's little poo, right? So I dumped the water out. They ate their minerals, I replaced the minerals, and I put another scoop of minerals in the water. So, yeah, the sheep seem to be doing just fine. I think they enjoy being by themselves without any boys around. Let's go check in on them. Grass here is pretty thick. It's thick Bermuda grass. Occasionally you'll see some goatweed. Goatweed's not doing that great here. You can see when it does grow, it doesn't grow that tall. So the goatweed's really struggling to compete with the grass here. Oh, they built a little trail. I like how the trails are never straight. They just kind of wander around. Looks like the sheep really like the east end of this row. I'm not really sure what it is they're eating. Oh, there's a lamb that crossed the wire. On the right there. I'll try to get her back. Yeah, oh, look at that lamb. That sheep is shed with the beautiful colors. I really like the black-headed Dorpers. I really do. This is the one I think that injured the neck. Let me see if I can see the injury on the other side here. Yeah, that's healing very nicely. All right. Yeah, there's a lamb, or a sheep maybe, on the other side there. I don't know how I'm going to get her back in. We're going to move tomorrow afternoon or evening. So today is kind of a rest day for myself. I don't have to move any animals or any fencing. So it's time to catch up on some of the chores that I wanted to work on, especially in this cold weather. Let me get the wire up. If I lift the wire up here, will she figure it out? All right, I'm gonna lift up the wire over there. There's a lot of the white sheep are over here, grazing on grass and the goatweed. I don't think they eat the goatweed. I haven't seen signs that they're eating it, but I'm fine with that. The goatweed's all gonna die in the winter anyway, so even though it's a perennial weed. Okay, try not to get shocked, mister. All right, get on the other side. One-handed. There we go. Sheep! Come on this way, little buddy. Come on over here. Come on over here. Sheep! Over here, buddy. Come on. Come on, sheep. Sheep. Yeah. If I had an assistant, I might be able to do this, but I don't. Hopefully I'll be able to get this back in the ground. Nice. Oh. Perfect. Just went right in. Nice. The soil's getting softer. Maybe put some pressure on her. Maybe she'll jump through the wire. There's a spot down there, I think, where the wire's taller or shorter. There's a little bit of a heel. No, you're going the wrong way. Come on, Speedy. You know, I was thinking a lot lately, various political topics and things like that. Without trying to comment on anything in specific, there's two ways you can approach reality. One way is to accept reality the way it is and figure out what you can do within the confines of logic and reason to hopefully improve your situation. The other is to reject reality and embrace fantasy and call people who embrace reality and recite reality, dirty names and derogatory names meant to inspire actual hatred and violence. So, the realists, the ones who embrace reality and say there's not much we can do to change it, if anything at all, we just adapt to it. Oftentimes they have a not happy message to share. I'll give you an example of a reality message. A reality message is that lab-grown meat will never be as nutritious as regenerationally grown meat, right? That this system of using nature to grow meat is the best system possible, right? There literally is no better system. And of course, as a realist, you're able to explain why things are the way they are, by drawing on reality itself. One of the realisms, I guess, is that no matter how much science we learn, there's always more to learn. And it seems the more we learn about nature, the more ignorant we become about it. One of my physics professors explained it as follows, says, imagine that all of knowledge, he said your knowledge is contained within a sphere, right? The surface area of that sphere represents the things that you don't know, right? It's the edge of your understanding. And the things outside of the sphere are just beyond your understanding. You can't even conceive that they even exist. And so, as your knowledge increases, as the volume of that sphere increases, the surface area, that represents your questions or things you don't know or things you want to know, increases also. And so as we learn more and more about nature and how she actually works, we just have more and more questions. Something was biting me. We just have more and more questions, right? So I don't think at any point, at least in my lifetime, maybe 1,000 lifetimes, will we ever completely understand nutrition and everything that goes on when we eat something. And because we can never understand that process completely, we will never understand completely how to create food that's healthy, right? All of our attempts so far have failed. And industrial and processed foods it's been a massive disaster for the American population. And, if I might be so bold, I think the reason why we have so many health problems is because we are eating unnaturally foods that were never meant to be food and using processes that were never meant to be used to create food, right? Even the act of cooking meat, it was interesting. I found out that raw meat contains a large amount of vitamin C. And so if you're in a situation where you only have meat available, you don't have any citrus or vegetables, that one way to prevent scurvy is to eat the meat raw, which was kind of surprising to me. I didn't know that fact, but apparently raw meat has its virtues as well. I'm not recommending people go out there and eat raw meat, maybe in survival situations, obviously, but it's just there's so much we don't know about food, Anyway, the realists say, hey, we just need to accept the fact that we don't know. And so we're going to use best practices to grow the best meat we can, relying on nature to fill in the gaps of our knowledge, right? And that's what regenerational agriculture is really all about. Is I cannot tell you exactly what's going on in the soil, but I can tell you that when I try to monkey with it too much, I cause damage. And so I'm just trying to let nature do her thing by using natural grazing cycles. The unrealist, or the people that live in fantasy and that hate people who remind them about the nature of reality, they don't want to live in that reality because they think that, in their moral system, that they want to impose upon the universe. Rather than accepting the moral system the universe gives them, they want to impose their own moral system. They might say something like, it's wrong to kill animals, or it's wrong to keep animals in captivity. They might say something, it's cruel, electric fence is cruel. They might say that animals should be free, able to roam freely in nature, and shouldn't have any kind of security or protection, but should be left to the wild animals, Or they might even go so far as to say something like, animals are basically humans and entitled to, rights and stuff like that. And so I should be giving these animals a healthcare plan and providing them a salary. Hey, Yami, how you doing? You know what I mean? And so like you get nonsensical stuff like that, where they're trying to create this fantasy out of thin air, that doesn't exist and isn't represented in any kind of nature, and that's just, the meat issue. One of the things that the realists, it's starting to rain a little bit. That's nice. One of the things that the realists too often do, and it's a manipulation from the fantasticalists, the fantasy dwellers, is they accuse us of being mean. When I tell someone, for instance, that in order to eat meat, you have to kill an animal. Here's a knife. Go stab that animal in the throat and drain its blood and eat it, right? They're like, oh, that's mean. That's rude. It's not polite. When I, another instance is I come home from the pasture and there's burrs on my clothing and dirt on my feet, and I smell like a pig, probably worse than a pig, because of the body odor and the sweat and all that, all the wonderful smells that you get when you handle sheep. And so they're like, oh, you're just a rude, evil person because, you didn't take a shower, you didn't comb your hair, and you're wearing dirty clothes and you're covered in filth. You know what I mean? So that's another reaction that people that live in fantasy have. It's kind of a game that they play on us, where if we don't follow their rules that they invent out of thin air, that we're the bad ones. When we state certain facts about reality, I'll give you an example of a fact, is a male sheep is a ram and can never ever be a ewe. Although I surgically remove the testes, that male ram is not able to bear young and never will be, okay? And the same for a ewe. There's nothing I can do to surgically modify a ewe to become a ram. So if I had a male ram that imagined he was a she or something, then there's that male ram is in error, right? The male ram is broken. The mind of that animal is broken. And the only way to repair that animal is to convince that animal that he is indeed a he and not a she, right? And so when I say something like that, that's based in reality, when I say something like, oh, if you go and sexually castrate yourself, mutilate your sexual organs, and mess with your chemistry, that you will become infertile, and as an infertile person, in society, one of the great main purposes of life, which is to marry, breed, and bear young, raise young, which is kind of the entire point of society. There is little reason to have a society if that society is not reproducing, bearing young, and raising young. Go ask the Japanese and Koreans what their thoughts on that topic is. When they're basically shown a countdown timer and says your society will go extinct in about 50 years, right? So, we're going to wake up in 2075 and we're going to read about Korea and Japan as an area of geography that once held a proud and noble race of people, but there's just a few remnants of that race mixed in with the rest of humanity. And they might talk about things that they used to do back in the day, the same way we talk about stuff that the Mayans and Aztecs used to do, or the ancient Romans used to do. You know what I'm saying? And so they failed at their primary mission, which was to bear young and raise them. And so those societies go extinct. Just like a herd or a flock that doesn't bear young ends up dead, right? There's no reason to keep it around. And even if I decided to pamper the infertile flock, it wouldn't change the result that in a few years there won't be any sheep left, right? So, we're faced with that dilemma where people who tell the real, they just say this is reality. You can't argue with it. Your choices are to get with the program or to live in fantasy land and die, right? That's basically your choices. And we're the mean ones for doing that. We're the cruel ones. We're, just like that man with the funny mustache from history. And, we're actually responsible for people dying because we're telling them that they're going to die if they do certain things. So it must be our fault. If I tell you if you eat poison, you will die, and then you eat poison and die, well, certainly I must be the one person responsible for killing that person because I told them that if they ate poison, they would die. Therefore, they died. Right? That's kind of the level of argument we're having in society today. Anyway, so the point is this, we're kind of at loggerheads right now as a society where the realists are rejected from society. There was a job that I was thinking of applying for. And at the bottom of the job application, it said, we're trying to be a diverse and inclusive company. And because I know what those are code words for, I knew that I was not welcome at that company because of the color of my skin, my political beliefs, and my religious beliefs, and the fact that I have a wife and 5 kids, and I'm very proud of that fact. So I'm not diverse, even though I'm only 8% of the world's population. And I'm not inclusive because I reject the fantasy world that would be imposed upon me by people who think that I'm evil, right? So anyway, that's kind of the world we live in. We're at loggerheads. How do we resolve this? There is no resolution. One side has to win. The good news is the realists will win. We are going to survive. They are going to die. One way or the other, right? I'm not saying I have to kill anyone. But we're going to wake up one morning, 20, 40 years in the future and realize those people are all dead. They're gone. They don't exist anymore. And we're going to write history books and we're going to mention about this crazy cult of people who believed in fantasy and disappeared, right? And then our great-great-great-grandchildren are going to read those books and they're not going to understand what they're reading. It's not going to make any sense to them, And so they're going to turn it into a story about a civilization that disappeared under the sea or mysteriously vanished, or maybe even God, hailed brimstone and fire on them or something like that. That's basically what is going to happen to these people because they refuse to embrace reality. They would try to impose their own fantasy on reality. And despite our warnings that what they're doing is certain death, to them, not us, we're going to be just fine, I'll be sitting here eating my sheep and my cows, enjoying barbecues with my family and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Meanwhile, they're going to buy a package of poison, eat it, get even sicker, and they're going to go to the doctor. The doctor's going to say, I don't know what's wrong with you. I've never heard of this disease before. Give them more pills. And so they'll be on, 67 different medicines instead of 65, after they started eating this healthy lab-grown meat, right? And they're going to die childless, alone. Maybe we'll find the body. There's that one lady that went to Wells Fargo, checked into work on Friday morning, and they didn't find her till Tuesday because she died. It's really sad, but that's the reality of life, I don't know anything about that woman's situation, but I think that it represents a story that the people who embrace fantasy over reality are going to have to realize one day, that they replaced family with company or business. They replaced sexual morality with immorality. They replaced the natural for the unnatural. And when they realized that their bodies and souls are not suited to live in such a fantasy, it's too late. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on those things. I hope that you all are able to see through the cloud, the darkness, and able to see the reality of the situation about what's truly important. And if you're confused on what's truly important, I'll list out a few very, very important things. Number one, God is important. We are religious beings. If you take God out of our lives, we're going to worship something else, Number two, we need a greater purpose. If I tell a man that this life is it, and when you die, that's it, you just go to the grave and your body turns to ash and dust, and the worms go in and the worms go out, and that's it. That is going to basically demoralize that person to the point where they become useless. They become nihilist. What's the purpose of anything, versus a man, I tell him that this life is just a bad reflection of a greater reality, that we have a greater purpose in the cosmos. In fact, the cosmos were created for us specifically, you specifically. And that even if you're not able to conquer in this life, you're supposed to struggle and try, and that you're rewarded in the afterlife, not based on your victories, but based on whether you fought the good fight, right? And that gives man purpose. It gives him an ability to cope with reality and accept things the way they are and look for a way forward, right? Another important thing is family. There really is nothing on this planet more important than family. Finding a wife or a husband, remaining married to that wife or husband for the rest of your life, despite what happens. I can't find the wedding vows where people said, I'm going to remain married to you until we have a disagreement, or until we fall out of love, or, until I just decide I'd probably be better off on my own, in which case we'll separate. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's, I don't know anybody that gets married that way. And if you are such a person that was your marriage vows, I encourage you to embrace the greater reality that you need an eternal purpose, and that purpose has to be your family, right? So I said God, I said afterlife, I said family. Another important aspect of life is owning land, and we don't talk about this very much, but owning land, it does something to a man. When you're no longer renting, but when you own a part of the God's green earth here, that's what we're meant to do. It sounds esoteric, especially to those who've never owned land before, but it changes your character. It changes your outlook on life. And owning land, owning animals, right? And that's why suburban people own dogs. A lot of them grew up in the rural environment and they just miss having animals around them. But if you own a little bit of land and can do it, get some sheep or some cows. Definitely get dogs. Cats are okay too. I don't like cats, but if you're a cat person, that's okay. But owning animals, there's a symbiotic relationship between humans and animals that I can barely understand, but they provide me something that all the psychologists in the world could never ever hope to provide, right? And I hopefully provide them something similar that they won't be able to find in nature without me or somebody, So anyway, that's kind of my message for the day, is become a realist, ignore the fantasy, don't listen to them when they laugh at you or when they mock you, or when they tell you you're stupid, or when they tell you you're evil, you're like funny mustache man from history. They're living in fantasy. Their words mean nothing. They're marching quickly towards their own self-destruction. And if you care for those people at all, you're going to tell them the truth. You're going to tell them what's happening, where they're going, what's going on. And they're going to say, well, you're just an evil person for telling me this. You must be responsible for my eventual death, even though you're the one trying to tell them don't drink the poison, So anyway, guys, have a great day. Don't get too depressed. Life is great. Life is good. Take care. Bye-bye.